You've tuned into Bellingham Podcast Media Tech for the week of June 4, 2017, episode 39. From the Simply City of So Due to Excitement, I'm AJ Barcay.
And straight out of Cell Block 6, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, last week AJ and I made a challenge to put your app's usage on a diet. Let's see how you weigh in. Sure, we're your friendly neighborhood podcasters, but what we listen to when we're not on the mic, we'll share our playlists. How do you experience solace and quiet in a world full of information overload? Stay tuned for a couple ways to get in touch with your inner Om. When the world's breathing down your neck and you want to say what the heck, just crack a smile and listen for a while. This is BPM Tech.
Yet again, Mr. Chris Powell, Busta Rhymes. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing, AJ?
Oh, good. I would be saying I'd be drinking a lovely cup of coffee, but I spilt it all over Bellingham's half acre.
Yes, well, you know, obviously you can't walk on water. It happens to the best of us. What
Okay.
coffee were you about to drink?
Just some normal Starbucks
Some
coffee.
homebrew.
just
Okay,
just
good
normal. You know, nothing
All
fancy
right,
today.
fair enough.
So we got some updates. We got something to follow up on.
And so there's been some updates. But first, AJ, I got to hijack the big show for a while. So this past Memorial Day weekend, I had the privilege of being both a DJ and a race announcer in one of the ski to sea legs up on Mount Baker.
Woot.
For those of you that aren't familiar with Bellingham, every Memorial Day weekend on Sunday, there's this big race starting at the top of a mountain with downhill skiing, snowboarding, et cetera, going to road running, 8 miles, bicycling, 40-some miles, canoeing, kayaking, cyclocross, not sure what that is, but my role was to help in the transition between running and bicycling. Had fun, did a great job, and then as a volunteer, I was a volunteer with a bunch of maybe around less than 20 people.
Good on you.
After the road race had leg of the competition had completed, there was about 300 plus people loitering around because you got to get off the mountain, or you got to get down the mountain with your ride. And in wonderfully sunny temperatures, there were at least a couple hundred people that were just idly sitting by, and there were 15, 17 volunteers disassembling a complete race finish line.
Ooh,
and ladies and
wow.
gentlemen, if you remember the videos, TV shows and movies where they have like the grandiose arch for the finish line and such, it's a lot of work to put it up, and it's a lot of work to take it down.
A lot of muscle, I'm assuming.
A lot of muscle, and some of the volunteers that were along with me, I have a decent amount of strength to be able to help out with this, but we're working with some folks in their sexagenarian, pentagenarian decades. There were some older folks, and there was a lot of straining, and there's a lot of panting and wheezing.
Oh, man.
And these fit people, sunning themselves after the race, did not lift a finger to help out the volunteers that were helping out. Not that it was their job, not that they were obligated to, but I'm looking at some of these able-bodied people as they're watching older folks struggle to try to put things away to get the location back to its original state. And it really angered me.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate the comfort. But however, I've been stewing about this week, folks, and I want you to listen to me and listen to me clear. When you see an opportunity to help someone, doesn't matter who, doesn't matter when, if you have an opportunity to do something nice, do it. There's that little voice in your head that goes, I should probably help matters out for this. Give into that inner voice in this situation. That's probably a good thing. I think if we help each other out, whether you see someone, a complete stranger, or someone that you kind of know but don't really know, struggling or needing some assistance, like getting a door open if they're carrying a whole lot of bags, if they are juggling a whole lot of stuff, if they are having what looks like a bit of an impairment, I think we would be a better community here in the city of subdued excitement if we helped each other out and didn't expect anything in return. I have a challenge for y'all if you're up for it. Look around If you see an opportunity, take it. Do something nice. Do your part. Help out. And if the opportunity is there, lend a helping hand. My name is Chris Powell, and I approve this message. So anyway, thanks for the soapbox. I had to get that off my set. It was really gnawing at me as I'm struggling myself, lifting sandbags and other heavy equipment.
And good on you, Chris. But still, I think this does tie into something that we've talked about outside of technology. We get too wrapped up in our own lives, and we get too wrapped up in we're too busy, or we feel like we're too busy. We can stop, take pause, and help somebody.
It's not like we're going to help out for 2 hours.
No.
Oh, by the way, it took 2 hours to disassemble the whole setup. But anyway, nonetheless, to be able to help out and do some part, many hands make light work. And if there were 150 people instead of 20 people, that thing would have been taken down in about, 8 minutes.
Yeah, and you could have been at Boundary Bay a lot faster.
Most likely. But anyway.
I gotcha.
C2C was fun.
Groovy.
We're in a new month. Let's get the big show started.
All right. So on the big show, I think it was 2 or 3 episodes back, we're talking about travel and
Travel tech.
And we had not a voicemail. We had somebody write in. So I think it was Jennifer. She wrote in and she tipped us off on this newfangled travel gizmo called I Am Illy.
ILI.
ILI. I think I related it to the wannabe universal translator from Star Trek.
Yes, exactly. And the video was rather impressive.
Yeah. So they've expanded on it. We do now know that it's going to be $199. It's available for pre-order. I don't know if I'm going to be running out to grab it, but I'm actually kind of surprised at the price. I mean, that's pretty reasonable if it does what's advertised.
It is reasonable. And if you are going to a country where you haven't brushed up on the language, here's an opportunity to cost $200 for the success in navigating around a foreign country. Maybe worth your time. IAMILI.com.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my eye on it because I'd like to see. Hopefully they expand it so that you can download different dictionaries and stuff. Yep. We'll see. Other than that, we were doing our going back to our previously on BPM Tech, our regular Repeal and Replace challenges.
Yes.
So what was this last week's challenge, Chris?
Doing more with less.
Yeah, and so we were encouraging you to take an audit of your phone and the plethora of apps that you may have. Now, Chris, I think you had a head start because you're Captain Minimal over there.
That's right. I got the badges to prove it.
How many did you cull any apps off your device?
Yeah, I nuked a couple of content consumption apps like Pocket and Quora and Reddit. This is my I'm sitting on the couch. I have 20 or so minutes of idle time before my next task or appointment or thing I got to do at home. And I would just see what's on the headlines.
Sure.
And so I knocked those out, and I think I'm down. I added a couple other apps for various reasons, but I think at this recording, episode 39, I'm at 31 apps.
Wow, well, you beat me on that one. I think I'm down to 56 now. I culled a couple. I had a few photography apps that I had on my phone that I had used before, especially when I was traveling. I re-looked at them. I'm like, I'm already done with these. And so I took them off. I think I started last show. I think I had 62. 64, 62. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I was able to cut a couple. I didn't really save a lot of space, but got maybe a couple 100 megabytes back.
And, it's not like we're telling you to sacrifice yourself or your well-being or enjoyment. We're trying to raise awareness and to give you a pause for thought to do I really need this, or can I install this at a later date and have less to worry about on my phone?
Right. So I thought it was a pretty good challenge. So we've been looking at challenges that focus on killing boredom.
Yes.
Part of also what we wanted to focus on is the fact that lately we are a bit oversaturated in news and content. And you and I have talked about this before. There's quite the echo chamber when you listen or watch different podcasts or maybe you watch some YouTube or you watch cable TV if you're like one of 6 people. We are inundated by opinions and thoughts and, quote, news and reporting.
And advertorials and biased content in how an article's written, depending on who the upper-ups are.
Sure. And so out of this, Chris and I wanted to take this episode and kind of hit some of the more indie circuits of podcasts, because as podcasters, we also listen to podcasts. We have other influencers. And you and I both have different topics that we subscribe to. So I thought it would be cool to, we're going to hit our top 5, our Bellingham Podcast Media Billboard top 5 podcasts. That was a mouthful. And for this week's challenge, we're going to also talk about kind of disconnecting from all that noise. Because even Chris and I, we need to find some headspace, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yep.
So, Chris, what are your top 5 podcasts?
So currently, I've auditioned a number. It's kind of like going to that all-you-can-eat buffet. There's a lot of podcasts to listen to. It's rather overwhelming, even when you go into the subcategories.
Sure.
I am a fan of being entertained, but I also want to learn something. And it's actually the top 4.
Oh, yeah, 4. Okay.
But I could come up with a 5th alternate if need be. But I have 4 currently that I subscribe to other than BPM on my phone.
Fair enough.
So in no particular order, there is a podcast out there from WNYC Studios called Note to Self. It is a fabulous podcast hosted by Manoush Samarodi. And Manoush, if you happen to listen in on this, hi. That is a tech show about being human. And if you ever need a guest star, Manoush, let me know. I'm happy to chime in. But anyway, great topics as far as kind of what we're talking about, the human side of technology and how to cope with Facebook and how to cope with security in this modern age. It's about a 30-minute or so podcast, and usually my morning commute, I'm blessed to have less than a 15-minute commute, and so I could pretty much knock out an episode on my way to work and on my way home from work. The second one, in no particular order, is called Mac Power Users off the Relay Network. David Sparks, who's also known as MacSparky.com, and Katie Floyd, both are lawyers, thank you very much, are absolutely lights out in another galaxy knowledgeable about Mac technology. And, I'm a tech. I'm putting content out there to share with others, but I get my content in a lot of ways from what they talk about.
They got teeth.
The only thing is they have about 90-minute episodes, and so I need to pack a lunch.
Yeah.
Or go for a long dog walk if I'm going to be
or two
if I'm going to be doing that. Third one is one by Chris Guillebeau, and Chris Guillebeau is the author of $100 Startup, and he's the coordinator of the World Domination Summit in Portland, which I would love to attend someday. I think it might be on my quasi bucket list to attend. But he has a podcast called Side Hustle School. And his mission in 2017, and I happened to stumble upon this right before 2017 launched, one podcast a day in which he is talking about someone who has a day job yet is making some additional income selling a product, selling a service, or doing something to generate additional income. It's very inspiring. It gives me a lot of pause for thought. It's about 7 or 8 minutes in length, and I can usually stagger that every other day, knock 2 out on my morning commute and my walk to the day job. And I thoroughly enjoy that. It's a Side Hustle School, and they also have a corresponding website with a lot of information as well. And the fourth one is not in regular syndication. This is actually an archived. This podcast was taken place between 2011 and 2013, and it's called Enough. And
I don't know this one.
Yeah, not many. Well, there's thousands do in this world, but basically it's a podcast which is a conversation between 2 of my influences. Patrick Rohn, who is the creator of MinimalMac.com and many books and is one of my influences, and I'm very blessed to have him as a internet friend. Hi, Patrick. And also Mike Hurley, who is the mogul of Relay FM, and he's on 452 podcasts.
I lost count.
Anyway, back in 2011, they pretty much had a conversation about technology, Mac related, but I find it very engaging. It's such a low key conversation, kind of like what we do. There's no flashy intro music. They're just like, so Patrick, how you doing? Well, I'm trying, doing this, and it just goes off and running. So they have archives on the web, and I've been able to subscribe to that archive of the podcast and listen to about 1 or 2 whenever I have some open free time.
That's cool. And even though it was done, you said in 2011 through 2013, you don't find the information dated?
Well, they'll talk about a 4 gigabyte MacBook Air, and that's totally cool with a 64 gig SSD drive. Okay, that was hot for 2011, but there are principles that apply. Sure. Patrick Rohn, at that time, back in 2011 or 2012, took a sabbatical from social media for like a week or perhaps a month. And by the way, folks, my guy, who I referred to, Patrick, publicized earlier this year that he was taking a non-line approach, and he's taking a year off of social media.
Right.
All of his accounts, he's doing a random newsletter, but he's also probably writing books with his time, and also going through the process of doing the massive detox. And so props, but Lifehacker picked that up, talking about non-line, where you are not online or just disconnect from all social media sources. So anyway, kudos to them, but those are my 4 that I listen to. What's on your list?
Well, mine, totally different segment. So my top 5, in no particular order, much like yours. I've mentioned these guys before, Jason Heaton and James Stacy of the Grey Nato. 2 guys that talk about watches and exploring and diving. They both write for like Revolution.watch and Blog to Watch, and I think Worn and Wound, they might do some work for them as well. But 2 really knowledgeable guys, down to earth guys. Anybody in the Bellingham area that likes the outdoors and kind of likes this whole thing that, about watches and time and horology, totally take a look at their show. Totally cool peeps. I think they're a couple episodes behind us. I think they're in the mid-30s. They're my go-to. I think they produce one every 2 weeks. Another one in the same vein, especially if you're a TikTok head like myself, is Worn and Wound. Now, if you're a horologist, you'll probably know the Worn and Wound website. They just started podcasting right before Baselworld. So if you rewind about 5 or so episodes with BPM, you'll hear that I mentioned that, and really cool. They're actually doing this series where they bring in these micro brands. They recently had the creator or founder or engineer, I don't know what his exact title is.
The architect.
Yeah, the architect of Vortec watches. And what's really cool about them is their watches, the case is 3D printed in metal.
I like that.
So it's a really cool episode. You can take a look at that. I think it's about 2 or 3 episodes back in their feed. In other news, outside of watches, the PetaPixel podcast.
PetaPixel?
PetaPixel. So if you're a photographer, PetaPixel is like one of the central hubs for photographers to check out the news, what's going on in the photography industry. And they got Sharky James, Len Shark. He's the showrunner for the PetaPixel podcast, and he does a stellar job. It is a one voice show. It is Sharky doing the entire show. No guests, no nothing. And Sharky, if you're listening, heyo. Love that guy, love that show, and I think they do an episode twice a week. So if you're into photography or the business of photography or the art of photography, take a look at the PetaPixel podcast. And then I've got one new podcast I started listening to. They're on Patreon, and it's called the World Wanderers Podcast. 2 people who are literally traveling full time, and they talk about where they go and how they got there, and then they bring on other people in the kind of the expat community, and also people that are full-time travelers or part-time travelers. And so, for instance, I think the last episode, I haven't listened to it yet, talks about if you're interested in teaching English as a foreign language, and you have that skill and you have that knowledge and you have a passion for travel, they have somebody on the show that they talk to and how they got into it.
So it's like the nomad life.
Kind of like the nomad life, yeah.
Or digital nomad or something like that.
Nomad Oasis.
There you go. Now you're talking.
Yeah, so same type of thing. 2 really cool peeps. I believe they're Canadian by original origin. So,
very good.
And then last but not least is the only explicit podcast I listen to.
You keep it clean most of the time.
I keep it clean most of the time. It's a fun show. So it revolves around watches, but it's called the 2 Broke Watch Snobs podcast.
Great title. I am down with that title.
The 2 Broke Watch Snobs literally are 2 guys, one of which is in Florida, the other one is in Seattle, in our background stomping grounds. And Kaz and Michael, they run that show, and they have an explicit tag. They go off the deep end. They come up with some pretty funny hashtags revolving around watches and sometimes cats. But if you're into watches and you're broke as a joke, but you really like drooling over some cool timepieces. They have some very colorful opinions, but I love those two guys. They're cool.
Wonderful. Sounds good. I might have to give that a try just so I can experience what you have been able to experience.
They're entertaining, to say the least.
AJ, will we ever do an explicit podcast?
No.
No? Okay, fair enough.
No.
Yeah,
But
we keep it clean around here in BPM.
We do. We do keep it clean because if you're in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM, low power community radio here in Bellingham, Washington, that keeps stuff clean.
That's right.
So let's get to our Repeal and Replace challenge. And you kind of alluded it in your the last podcast pick that you had.
Yes.
You're like, I did?
Sorry,
Yes.
man, I fell asleep on you. No, I'm kidding. Yes, we need to be able to turn things off every now and then. We need to shut out the world. We need to take time just to be able to reclaim some of this solace, like I said in the intro, in a world that is completely like amplified beyond the realms of good taste. Mm-hmm. And so our challenge this week is to set up. Try it out in airplane mode.
Yeah.
And try a mental detox. When you put your phone in airplane mode, whether you have an Android or an iOS iPhone, you don't get the phone calls, you don't get the notifications. You have a phone, set it aside. Experience life. Just try it. We have to do it every now and then when the battery's expired and we still have it and we haven't gotten home to a charger. But instead, try to take a mental break. Yeah. And so with a mental break, we've got a couple other ideas in mind.
Right. And so that's the reason why we're saying airplane mode and not just powering down your phone, because some of you are probably thinking, well, if I'm going to do that, why don't I just turn it off? The thing that Chris and I want to challenge you is take a page out of Chris Powell's book and try to find some ambient headspace time. There's 2 apps that we're going to recommend, and they can run without an internet connection. So you can still keep your phone in airplane mode, and it will provide you some ambient sounds to kind of help you just disconnect for a little bit. The thing is that you're probably thinking, well, why don't I just put on my Apple Music or my Google Play Music, or maybe throw on some of those podcasts that you guys talked about. Again, it goes back to the fact that we do that a lot. We're kind of reliant on it. These 2 apps kind of help you towards meditation. Now, regardless of what denomination of faith or anything like that, these are just intended as ways for you to not have to rely on reading or listening or having to process something other than your own thought. That is what this challenge is.
This is a mental sound bath to take back all that has been assaulted and assaulting you during your day. So...
So what's your pick, Chris?
So when you get a chance, this is an app called Headspace. You alluded to it earlier. Headspace is a free app with an asterisk. They do have a monthly subscription, but try it for a few days. The gentleman that curates Headspace or designs and develops Headspace has a wonderful voice, and there is no flowing music. It's kind of quiet. But it's a non-weird guided meditation. And I found that on a lunch break, there was a time in my life where I really needed to hit mental reset on my brain and my emotions and my heart. And so I would go out to my car, not in the warm season where it was like 90 degrees in there,
right.
But to go into my car and shut the doors and play the Headspace app and allow my breath to be acknowledged, allow my eyes to be closed, and to visualize my body gradually relaxing. No, it was not hypnosis, but it was really helpful, and I definitely recommend that. I found a way that I was able to kind of hit game resets during my lunch hour, and it was about a 10-minute session. You can have various times for how long you want to go, 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes. And then you could face the afternoon. I was able to face the afternoon with a little bit of a clearer head and take on some challenges in a pretty good headspace, no pun intended. So anyway, check out Headspace on the App Store. How about you, AJ?
Mine is, first, I'm a fan of classical music. I do have a classical music playlist that I do use. But if I really, because here's the thing, like even when you listen to classical music, you're paying attention to the notes and the ensemble and stuff. And again, that does take some processing power, a less than, maybe some AC/DC. But I really like Flowing. Now, Flowing is made by the same app developer of another app that I've mentioned before on the show, Windy. This app developer has a series of these apps that are beautifully designed. They have these nature parallaxy, where if you move your phone, the photo moves, that animation effect. And each of these scenes have gorgeously designed nature scenes in high def and stuff, and they're just a still photo, but there are different sound effects in the background, like a trickling creek, rain on a tent, wind, birds chirping, and it also has a guided meditation if you so choose. But it also has a sleep timer. And I use this when I have very busy weeks and I need to wind down in the evening. And I find that music can't do it, and listening to podcasts inundate me. I throw on about an hour and a half of this, and I fall asleep to it.
Excellent.
And so I really like Windy. I think it's maybe $1.99 in the App Store.
Factor a couple bucks.
Yeah. There is a free version of one of that app developer's apps, and I can't remember which one is free. It might be Sunny. It's along the same vein, but if you want to try that out, totally worth it, especially to try out this week's challenge.
Absolutely. And once again, if you happen to give this a try, or you have a morning commute on public transit or something like that, give it a try. See what the headphones do to you and how your day is affected. Better yet, why don't you give us a call on our voicemail line?
Once you come out of airplane mode.
Yeah, put it back off of airplane mode into regular cell signal. But give us a call on your phone app, area code 201-731-8324. That's 201-731-TECH. Leave us a message. Let us know what you thought of a meditation or a quiet app. And if you found one that works for you, let us know. We'd love to be able to get other insights and aspects.
Totally. So I have one thing left before we close.
A podcast episode with us would not be complete without a coffee update. Hit it, AJ. What's the latest in your coffee explorations?
Okay, so another listener to whom I've spoken in the real world, his name is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mark. He listened to our show way back when I had you come over to the house.
Yes.
And we used the Chimera.
The Chimera.
Yes.
For the cup of coffee.
Yes, for the cup of coffee.
That you can't taste, but I gave you the auditory description of.
Yep.
It was a tasty cup of coffee.
You went all BBC on that episode. It was great. So anyway, I apologize to my listener, Mark, because I have yet again another coffee machine. So long before I got the Chimera, I've said time and time again, I think one of the best coffee makers that you can get, whether you have a gas stove or an electric stove, is a vintage Bialetti. This is the mocha pot. It looks like an octagon hourglass, basically. And it's just an Italian percolator. Bialetti's, I think, been around since like 1933.
Is it the Cadillac of coffee makers?
I wouldn't say it's the Cadillac. I think it's like the people's coffee maker. It's the Volks coffee maker.
The Volksjava.
The Volksjava.
There you go. Hey, Max.
Hey, Max. And the thing is that when I did my remodel, I went to induction, which it's an electric range, but it uses electromagnetism to make heat. And in doing so, you have to have stainless steel or something ferrous for it to engage. And unfortunately, Bialetti's, the mocha pots, are all made out of aluminum. So,
or aluminum if you're from Bellingham.
I knew you'd bite onto that one.
Johnny Ive says hi. Anyway, go ahead.
So anyway, I was really bummed, and that's what led me to get the Chimera, which I still use. I love it. Makes some of the best espresso. But I missed my mocha pot because when I want to have a solid, I'll say Americano-sized cup of coffee, not an un peu de café, the Chimera just doesn't do it. So I was trying to hack my Bialetti. I tried using my cast iron skillet as like a base plate, and it would get too hot. And so anyway, I just bought the bulletin and I did some research. Bialetti, fairly recently, they make induction-based mocha pots. Now, caveat. Bialetti also is not made solely in Italy anymore. They source from around the world, and you have to be careful because some quality assurances have not been checked, and there's a lot of people on Amazon that will tell you that. So just bear in mind when you look at some of these, just see where these are coming from. But if you look at their induction line, there is one, and I can't remember the model. It might be the Dama. I can't remember. But it looks like it takes all of the vintage hourglassy look and redefines it. So the bottom part, which usually is like a octagon or a hexagon thing, it's now rounded, and it's made out of stainless steel. That's where your water goes.
Now we're talking.
And the top part is still aluminum.
Hey, now.
And it's still in that octagonal classic look, but the top is now rounded. I think it's a slick design. It pays homage to where it came from, but just updates it subtly. And it's really aesthetically, it's nice. This one's actually made in Romania, designed in Italy, built in Romania. I love it. I mean, I put it on my induction, and I get my coffee for, I don't know, maybe my cup is done in like 3 minutes flat. Like it's right up with the Chimera.
So my birthday's coming up in July, AJ, and if I get some birthday money, how much would I need to set aside to afford one?
So if you have an induction range and your birthday is coming up, or if you have a gas range, it'll work on all three. This one, by virtue of the fact that it is made for induction, it'll work on gas. It'll work on just electric coil. Mileage will vary in speed on both of those ranges, but on an induction stove, which is its primary design, it will set you back, depending on where you buy it, close to like $75.
Well, I've been a good boy this year. I think I'm
for a 6-cup.
For a 6-cup?
pot.
Well, I think that's fairly affordable.
Yeah.
That is, let's see, 15 cups of coffee at Starbucks that you'd have to sacrifice in order to finance one.
Yeah.
But it sounds pretty good. And
Yeah.
it's a great step in your journey in analog coffee making.
What are you alluding to, Chris?
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to us on your favorite podcast apps. And you may be able to find us on KMRE Thursdays at 9 a.m. and Saturdays at 1:30 p.m. You can check out Bellingham Podcast and subscribe to our show. We would thoroughly appreciate it. So thank you once again for joining us on Bellingham Podcast Media Tech. From zip code 98226, I am Chris Powell.
And I'm AJ Barce. We'll see you next time.